Hey guys, PK here. I don't often say this, but I think I should say this more. Thank you for being part of my community. I really appreciate it. It's really your community. So whether you listen to this, while you're walking your dog, or you're cooking, or at the gym, or in the car, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, I just want to express my gratitude. Today's episode is, it's actually full of so much depth. It's full of so much content. I think you'll get so much out of it. But I just want to start by saying thank you for everyone who has actually left a review. For so many reviews on Spotify now, more than 100, more than 150 on Apple Podcasts. I'm really grateful and appreciate every single one of them. Today we'll talk about when will the Perth property market crash? And if it does crash, when it crashes, how is it going to impact the rest of Australia? Okay, look, money is made through calculations. It's made through spreadsheets and formulas, as boring as that sounds. Some people have mastered this and some people are chasing it. But really the real difference between those two people are calculations, spreadsheets, and formulas. And so before I invest, I have like dozens of formulas I use to calculate the potential return on investment and the risk of a certain property or area. Like, of course, it's impossible to accurately predict the market every single time, and it doesn't matter how good you are. I don't think anyone can do that perfectly. But there are patterns, and the methodology that I've been building up for more than a decade now, since 2011, is really summarized like this. We safeguard our investments and continuously grow the potential returns by using certain formulas and calculations for certain scenarios and cases. Okay, bit of a mouthful, and it might seem odd to you that like the secret of mastering money is basically maths, but it truly is. Okay, and I think the people who start and scale a successful income generating property portfolio, they discover a methodology or this methodology or a similar methodology like this, and they master money by mastering mathematics. And when you understand how to use these formulas, how to use these numbers, how to use these spreadsheets, then you can map out different scenarios for different markets. And that's what we'll cover today. When will the Perth housing market finally crash? Look, Perth's property market is leading Australia in growth, whether it's February, March, etc., etc. Prices are rising, rents are rising, supply is low. But I think there's a pinprick, a hidden pinprick that could potentially pop what other people call this bubble. And so in this episode, I do provide a 2024 update on Perth's housing market, but also share my honest thoughts on what could cause this market to somewhat collapse and bring Australia's economy down with it. I don't normally share content like this, but sometimes you just got to call a spade a spade. So thank you in advance for listening to this, and join my Facebook community, Australian Property Mastery with PK, with 50,000 amazing community members, to let me know what you thought of this episode, to ask questions, to share your perspectives as well. Let's go. Welcome to the Oz Property Investment Mastery Podcast. My name's PK, and I help busy people build passive income by buying top 5% growth and cash flow property and build a portfolio using data without wasting months doing research, spending weekends at inspection or catching flights, or dropping $10,000 to $20,000 on buyer's agents every single time. So if you're confused, lack confidence, and just overwhelmed with all the information and marketing misinformation available online and don't know where to start, then this show is for you. Perth's property market is going a bit bananas, but there is a big problem that is brewing, not just for Perth, but also for Australia, that could potentially take the rug out from underneath all of these house price increases. So to kick things off, this data is 1 day old from CoreLogic. It's showing in the month of February 2024, Perth property market grew by 1.8%. Okay, if you annualize that, that's clearly in double-digit territory, followed by Brisbane and Adelaide. And then if you go to quarterly growth, then Perth still performs the best. And if you times that by 4 to get an annualized read, just as an estimate, that's 20% growth. Adelaide and Brisbane really going well as well. And then annual growth, Perth is once again in the lead. As predicted, if you follow my channel for more than 1 or 2 or 3 years, this was all coming, right? And I think what's interesting too is that the median value in Perth, according to CoreLogic, is 687. And so it's one of the cheapest capital cities except for Hobart and Darwin. And so this growth has a lot of legs, especially if you consider Perth being one of the highest income earning cities, a bit like Sydney actually. But this could all come crashing down. Macro Business has reported a Sky News TV segment which shared how WA Health Minister is actually in India on a mission to recruit more than 5,000 health staff professionals to fill the healthcare staff shortage in the state. The state government of WA is also lobbying the federal government for more immigration. And then the segment from Sky News finishes off by saying that the vacancy rate in Perth is just 0.4%, the lowest basically ever been. And that's led to people advertising a garage with a mattress for $300 a week. I'm kind of laughing, but that's kind of sad. And this chart in Macro Business, this image, I think it pretty well depicts what's going on. Houses are really expensive. Tell me if you're following along, okay? Then we tell people we must increase the housing supply. All the property professionals, everyone is in the know, is like, okay, we've got huge demand. We need to increase supply, increase supply, increase supply, because demand ain't going anywhere, okay? Australia is a fantastic place to be. And so we import more immigrants to build houses, amongst other things, okay, and I'm going to go into that in a second. The houses don't get built because developers are taxed up to 30-40% of the construction costs by the state, federal, and local governments to build new houses, and the local councils simply don't develop land, don't release land, don't give the approvals, the permits for these developers to actually build the land. So these immigrants, they need somewhere to live, houses prices go up, and the cycle repeats itself. And in that Sky News segment, it's like the government, especially the WA government, state government, they go to these other countries like the UK, New Zealand, India, etc. to bring people over, and they don't tell them there's a housing shortage in Australia. And so these poor people come over and everyone's angry at them saying that you're causing the housing problem, but they're like, I didn't even know about this and now I have no place to live. Who's to fault? Is it the immigrants or is it the policy that's allowing so many unsustainable migration policies to carry on? And so then you get into the state where the WA population change, check it out, the population growth is in the black, it's the highest it's been in the last 40 years, including the blue line, which is net overseas migration, and then of course net interstate migration is the highest it's been as well. So poor housing market, the poor locals in WA and Perth, they got nowhere to go. And then you juxtapose that with dwelling completions, the amount of supply that's coming online, and you can see this blue line just trending down, 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 down. I mean, yes, it's just ticked up a little bit, but see the gap versus the actual population change? I mean, there's no chance of it catching up anytime soon. And therefore, you've got Perth home prices rocketing up, houses going up, overall dwellings going up, units, not so much. Even immigrants prefer a house with land. And the same is true for rents. The green line, Perth is leading the nation in terms of annual change in rents for both houses and units. And so I'm painting a pretty bleak picture, but I want to cut to the chase. I want to actually give you the climax, which is right after this chart. What this chart is saying is that the immigration levels we've had since about mid-2000s have been much higher around here than the preceding 50 or 55 years, around which we had about 80,000 immigrants per annum. And now that number has spiked up. Of course, in COVID it came down, but that's gone up more than enough to compensate a few years or a couple of years of no migrants. So is the solution going back to reducing immigration to under 100,000 people per year? Here we go. To answer the immigration question, I want to use this chart. It shows real gross household disposable income per capita or per person in Australia in the blue compared to OECD, so developed countries that are sort of peers of Australia. And you see a tragic tale. You see that Australia has actually dipped below and fallen for multiple years now in terms of its household disposable income. The amount of income that's left over after spending all your essentials. You can see it's consistently been increasing in Australia, but since 2013, these other countries have actually closed the gap in terms of rate of increase. And sure, they've had some turbulence, they've leveled out, but Australia has just fallen off a cliff. In fact, it's the worst amongst its peers. You compare it to Austria, Ireland, Germany, Canada, Sweden, Netherlands, Italy. They all went back too, but Australia went around 2 percentage points more backwards than all of these others. And then in fact, others like Belgium, Finland, Slovenia, United States, United Kingdom, and Poland of all places as well, Portugal, Denmark, all of these places have actually improved their disposable income per capita. So what's Australia doing wrong? Where does the problem lie? Problem isn't to do with inflation, because Australia's inflation levels have actually been less than most of these other countries, United States, United Kingdom, Germany. These guys all had much higher inflation than we did. So what's the problem? My hypothesis is that the problem is an aging and unproductive, lazy local population. That's a big claim to make, but there's so many charts that I've shared before showing how Australia's productivity rate, or GDP per hour worked, has consistently come down. We have a retiring population. The baby boomers aren't productive anymore, but they're still hanging on to their jobs. They're not retiring in droves because, once again, cost of living has gone up so much. They're asset rich but cash poor. And the new generation, Gen Z, or the one before that, they don't want to work hard. They don't want to work as hard as the new generation in some of these other countries. And so then we have a skill shortage. Okay, our GDP stagnates. We don't improve our gross domestic product. We don't improve our productivity. We have a massive skills shortage. We don't have enough hospitality workers. We don't have enough construction workers. We don't have enough miners. We don't have enough fruit pickers. We don't have enough retail workers. We don't have enough IT analysts. We don't have enough, etc., etc., etc. Therefore, because of this homegrown problem, we have to import those skills. Those poor immigrants don't realize we have a housing problem, and they further contribute to it, and the whole thing goes to hell. In the short to medium term, the takeaway is house prices go up, 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 up. But concurrently, our lifestyle, our productivity, our GDP growth, our disposable income, all of these things start to erode. And what that means is, in the long term, we are creating cracks in the bedstone of the economy and the society and civilization in Australia, which could completely destabilize the housing market. The housing market only performs well if GDP, if economic growth is buoyant. If no one wants to work locally and they're not productive doing so, because we have one of the lowest productivity rates in the OECD, and we rely on overseas people that have nowhere to live, then what's the solution? Then how can this economy really carry on? How can Australia still function for the middle class in 10, 20 years' time? All that happens is the gap between the haves and have-nots gets further and further separated. The number of ultra-wealthy who have more than $30 million in net wealth in Australia is expected to increase over the next 5 years by almost 5,000 people. 5,000 may not seem a lot, but these are people with $30 million to spend. And get this, China, that is expected to grow by more than 45,000. Chinese people, what do they love? They love Australian real estate. They like to produce steel, they need iron ore, and they love to invest in Australian real estate. There's a real problem in Australia. Inequality is only going to get bigger. You need to decide which side of that equation you want to go on. But we need real solutions, and we need to go to our local members of parliament. We need to go to our government representatives and become activists, because even though this is a property channel, the Australian economy is looking shaky over the next 2 decades. The house prices will continue to go up, but they won't serve the common man. It could all come crashing down if the government doesn't sort it out right now.